Hi, thanks for coming to my channel. It's been a little while since I made a video. I'm just distracted by a lot of other things. There's a lot going on right now. I've got my COVID vaccine today, my first dose. It was a Moderna vaccine, and I got this at the NHS Nightingale Hospital in Washington, Tyne and Wear. Uh, there's a special bus that went from Sunderland city centre to that facility. A huge building. It was actually converted Nissan factory or one of their outlets. Nissan is a huge employer here, has been for 30 years, and it was one of their facilities. So it was a big complex. You know, you go in and it was all divided into units. Side effects, not really. I have a little bit of fatigue, and I had a little bit of fatigue afterwards. Slightly sensitive in the arm, but other than that, no side effects so far. So far. But anyway, this video, as you'll know from the title, is not about that. I just thought I'd say it in passing. The video is about a subject that I feel strongly about. I have spoken about in these videos many times, and I just want to talk about a case which to me reiterates the issue. So this is from LBC. I'll read out a bit of the report. Um, and the report's by Nick Hardinges. Six teenage boys arrested on suspicion of murder as man, 35, dies after assault. So the victim in this case is the same age as me. Six teenage boys aged between 16 and 17 had been arrested on suspicion of murder after a man, 35, died from head injuries following an assault in Northumberland. Police were alerted by the ambulance service on Saturday to an assault that took place shortly after 1 a.m. in the Romsey Close area of Cramlington. Officers and paramedics attended and found the victim with a serious head injury. He was taken to hospital but died on Sunday as a result of his injuries. Northumbria Police has now launched a murder investigation, and the man's family, who are being supported by specialist officers, have been notified. Six males have been arrested, all aged between 16 and 17, on suspicion of murder. A spokesperson for the force said, first and foremost, their thoughts are with the family of the man who has sadly lost his life as a result of this tragic incident. We would ask that the family's privacy is respected as they come to terms with their loss. Inquiries are ongoing to establish exactly what happened and how the victim in this case has ultimately lost his life. A team of detectives are now working to establish the facts and would encourage any witnesses to come forward. Police said several people are believed to have been in the area at the time of the attack. Officers are asking anyone who may have witnessed the assault or any motorists passing by the area who may have dashcam footage to contact them, and I'll put a contact here. If you live in the Northumberland area, the number is you can contact Constabulary via Tell Us Something. That's on their website. It's a page on the website, or you can call 101 and quote log 82 290 521. So that's call 101 and then quote log 82 290 521. Alternatively, people can contact the independent charity Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111. So if you know anything and you're in the Cramlington area, please do. Please help that grieving family. But this case, like I say, the circumstances are not entirely clear. But I think it sounds like what happened to Gary Newlove. He was a father who, I think it was 2006 or 2007, he stood up to some local teenagers. This was in Warrington, who were engaging in antisocial behaviour. He stood up to them, and they turned on him, basically kicked him to death. And his widow, very bravely took on the campaign against antisocial behaviour, and she was awarded in the or recognised rather in the honours. This she's now a Baroness Newlove, but she's spent the last 14 years campaigning on justice issues. Um, I've always felt very strongly about that kind of crime. Now, again, I emphasise the case I quoted. We don't know the exact circumstances. It may have been he was in some other dispute with them, but I just think it sounds a lot like a situation where, a man has heard disturbance late at night, he's come out, and, rabid yobs have turned on him, because it's happened before, and that's what it sounds like. But if you're in that area, please do the right thing and contact the police. Um, but what I want to talk about is this idea that the liberal left always come out with, and it is a partisan issue, I'm afraid. It is something the liberal left tend to gravitate towards, which is, oh, let's rehabilitate. Let's just rehabilitate. That's their favorite word when it comes to crime and justice, rehabilitate. I don't think rehabilitate is a dirty word. I think it has its place. But what I really, really take issue with is their notion that punishment's a dirty word. I personally believe you cannot have justice without punishment. And a crime like this, where a man's lost his life, I don't know if he has children. The report was didn't give those details, but 35 years old, young guy, um, gone. That's it. And he's passed away, but the people really suffering will be his family. I can't even begin to imagine what that is like to even begin to process that your loved one has died long before their time in those sort of circumstances. It's horrendous. So that's why I have no tolerance for the idea that the only approach to crime and justice should be rehabilitation, because to me that says a lot about the person promoting that view. They don't understand the victims of serious crime cannot move on without knowing that the people who have put them there are paying a price for it. Punishment's part of justice. It has to be. There's another thing that they tend to do, and talk about people in the liberal left of this argument. They tend to really hail the Nordic system. They hail Sweden, Norway, Denmark for low reoffending rates and ostensibly low crime rates. Well, if we want to make international comparisons, I would say, well, okay, you could look at Japan. Japan also has very low crime rates, but they have a pretty tough penal system. They do take punishment as part of the justice system. I'm not saying everything the Japanese do is right. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of within their death penalty structure, for example, they don't give the condemned any advance notice. It's kind of like knock on your door and that's it. It's different from the American system where they're on death row for years. I'm not entirely comfortable with that. I don't think it's transparent and it seems unnecessary. However, the Japanese don't mess around. If you hurt society in Japan, you pay a price. I agree with that. Um, Britain by no means has the worst system in the world, but there are areas we can improve. I've long argued that judges need to be more accountable, so the public has to have more empowerment to hold weak judges to account. By weak judges, I'm talking about judges that routinely pass pathetically soft sentences that just don't match the gravity of the crime. But this argument about rehabilitation, recidivism, and so on, um, there's a lot of important aspects to look at with that. Obviously, if you have punishment just for the sake of it, that is punitive. If you put someone in prison and they're sitting in their cell for 23 hours a day, that's probably not going to do much in the long term to help them reintegrate into society. I accept that. So I do think that prison or penal reform should have a place. You can have facilities for education and other outlets that can be productive. However, prisons should not be comfortable. They should not simply be an extension of outside life. Because if you start, letting them watch TV and just basically do everything they can do outside, except they're not allowed to leave the building, then it's not really prison. And what might work in the Scandinavian countries, and what the left love to hail, I don't think it would be accepted in this country because I think the British people, I'm fairly confident saying this. If you'd done a vox pop on the street and said, "What do you think of sentencing in this country?" I reckon at least 50%, probably more, would say it's too soft. System favors criminals. And that's not universal. We're a democracy. People have different opinions. There will be people who say, no, no, our approach doesn't work. We should copy Sweden and Norway. But I reckon they'd be in the minority. I do. Um, so what we need to have is a practical system, but a tough system. I don't want our prisons to resemble Swedish prisons, which to me, frankly, look like hotels. I don't want that because, that's sending out a message as a criminal that, well, you've done this terrible thing, But we don't want to punish you because that's punitive. No, I disagree with that. I think a criminal needs to know that he or she is paying a price for what they've done, and it's not revenge; it's justice. Because this is another narrative I really, really take issue with on the liberal left. They talk about punishment as if it's revenge. It's not. Revenge would be doing exactly the same thing to the criminal. Um, but I'm a pragmatist. I understand that punishment alone is not the answer. I think there are some people that can never be rehabilitated. I think when you get serial killers, and the worst terrorists, people like that, I don't believe they can ever be brought into civil society. I don't think they should ever be released. For other serious criminals who aren't serving whole life tariffs and who aren't on quite that level of extremes, rehabilitation would have a place, but it has to be only after the fact of punishment. I mean, you can't have a situation where an action has taken place. Because I really look at this from a philosophical point of view. You have the action, and you have consequence, and then you have rehabilitation. That's how I see it. But the liberal left want to say action, rehabilitation. They don't want consequence. They ignore that middle part, or rather, they'd like that to be ignored. Because I have literally heard people say, "Oh, I don't think there should be punishment in the system." Certainly, that's a position of the Green Party, which is why I would never vote for them. Um, but I am a staunch believer that if you hurt society, you pay a price. Because that is fairness. Because that is fair measure for what you have done. It should be proportionate, and of course, it should be through due process. But the irony of this is my position is hardly extreme. It's not a hang 'em and flog 'em position. I'm talking about being practical on the inside, have education facilities, have practical things they could do, maybe counselling other inmates. And I am in favour of building more prisons because it's not like the Scrooge thing, or don't we have prisons, don't we have workhouses? In this case, actually, building more prisons is more humane because you ease the pressure on the current system because it is overcrowded. So you ease that pressure, means less pressure on staff, less pressure on inmates. Rather than having four people share a cell, you have two share a cell, which means inevitably there'll be fewer tensions. Um, where disturbances happen, it's not really surprising if you have people, if it's overburdened. And there's some parts of the world. I mean, if you look at prisons in Latin America, countries like El Salvador or the Philippines, the other side of the world, they're basically human battery farms. I certainly don't want prison to look like that. I mean, I can't imagine they have any success in reducing reoffending. I don't know. I maybe need to look more into it. But to me, that's one extreme, and the Nordic model is another extreme. So you have like human battery farms, and then you have basically hotels. What we need is something in the middle, which is not a human battery farm, but nor is it a hotel. It's tough, but it's also practical. That's what I want to see. Um, I don't think our system's the worst in the world. I think there is problems with sentencing, and I think we do have a particular problem with antisocial behaviour. Young offenders in particular, we need to stop treating them like victims and recognise that what they've done. Um, I mean, it scares me quite frankly that there are people out there who are so lacking in a conscience that they're prepared to beat a stranger to death for looking at them the wrong way. People like that need to be behind bars because they're dangerous. Anyway, before I go in circles, I'll round this up. That's my take. Action, consequence, punishment, and then rehabilitation. You cannot have action then rehabilitation, and that's what some on the left want. Incidentally, this is one area I've no problem admitting I am more to the right conservative side of things. Yeah, that's it. Okay, then any thoughts?